Here's a depressing fact for you from In These Times. Senate Democrats offer little to no opposition to Trump's expansion of Syria bombings. Little to no opposition. The number is 92% of Senate Democrats and independents failed to substantively dissent against Trump's April 13th airstrikes. 92%. Now, I should be clear, when they talk about principled opposition, they mean a Democrat taking the position of, don't do these bombings, they are wrong. You're wrong on the substance of these bombings. These bombings are immoral, these bombings are unethical, Assad poses no threat to us. Not only should we have a vote on this issue, but if we had the vote, I would vote no. That's distinctly different from procedural objections. Now, many more Democrats did the procedural objections, but of course, when you dig beneath the surface, you learn that when they do these procedural objections, it's kind of bullshit because it turns out they're only for having a vote on it. Some of them were even honest enough and straightforward enough to say, if we had the vote, I would vote yes. I would vote yes for the bombings, but we need to have the vote. So when you're doing this hand-wringing over procedure like, we need to have a vote on war so I could give you my rubber stamp of approval. Well, that's a totally fundamentally different thing from saying, these bombings are wrong and I would vote no if we had a vote on them. So 92% did not voice a principled objection to the bombings in Syria. To give you some more specifics, just 4 out of 49 Democratic and independent senators expressed principled opposition. Just 4! 4! Kirsten Gillibrand, Ed Markey, Christopher Murphy, and Bernie Sanders were the only 4 Democratic senators who voiced a principled objection to the bombing in Syria. 20 Senate Democrats, how sad is this fact, voiced full support for the bombings. 20 supported the bombings, only 4 objected on principle. If you want to know why the Democrats keep getting routed in elections, well, this is one of the reasons why. Because there is no anti-war party. So you have the Republicans who are, comical in 1,000 different ways and even more corrupt. And then you have the Democrats who are Republican light. And when you give people the option of Republican or Republican light, it turns out they overwhelmingly choose Republican. But if you give them the choice of Republican and populist left, we know what can happen. But the Democrats are not offering you an anti-war party, an anti-Wall Street party. They're not offering you a party that's for totally legalizing marijuana across the country. They don't fight on any of these issues that would be giant electoral victories for them. And quite apart from that, they're fundamentally immoral and unethical. Because they sheepishly oftentimes try to pretend they're with you, but then they don't actually vote with you. So, 20 Democrats supported it fully, and by the way, including Chuck Schumer, jackass Chuck Schumer, who, is a fucking Democratic leader, and he agrees seemingly more with Republicans than Democrats, at least every time we come across a high-profile issue. Chuck Schumer's like, yes, how can I agree with Republicans? But then also, Doug Jones. So Doug Jones, who won the election, it was in Alabama, right? I think it was Alabama. And he won because overwhelmingly poor people and people of color, specifically women of color, went out and voted for Doug Jones. And then the second he gets elected, all you hear from corporate media and all you hear from establishment Democrats is this bullshit argument that, well, now that Doug Jones got elected because of his base, now he has to stab his base in the back and try to get phantom moderate Republican voters on his side. So you have to allow him to vote with the Republicans all the time now. Think about how stupid that argument is. He won because the base came out for him in droves. That's why he won. And many Republicans stayed home because, Roy Moore was a fucking pedophile. So if you think this through for just a few seconds, you realize, oh shit, maybe the way to get elected the next time around is to super serve your base. Because now why the fuck are these people going to come out and vote for you if you repeatedly stab them in the back? Doug Jones also voted for Wall Street deregulation. What fucking single mom who came out and made time to vote for Doug Jones is now going to go back out and vote for Doug Jones when he just cast a deciding vote that's going to speed up the next economic crash, which is going to disproportionately affect the same people who voted for Doug Jones? So this whole philosophy of the corporate Democrats is just wrong. The idea of like, run further to the right and be more like the Republicans, and then that'll guarantee your electoral victory the next time around. But every time that Democrats run like that, they get routed. Hillary Clinton ran as Republican light, and she got... Donald Trump beat her. Fucking Donald Trump, a reality star buffoon, beat her. You know, 1,000 seats the Democrats lost under the leadership of Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi. And now everybody's saying, let's double down on that philosophy, their philosophy, which just cost us all these seats in the first place. It's beyond maddening. By the way, Joe Manchin, John Tester, Chris Van Hollen, and Ron Wyden, and Debbie Stabenow are just some of the Democrats who said nothing about the bombing. What a normal and functioning system that we live in, where the president launches an offensive strike against a country that didn't attack us, and the people in the opposition party, many of them, sit there and shut the fuck up because they think, oh, politically, this is a tough one because I'm from a red state, so I want to seem like I'm not totally against the president. But I also want to keep my party on my side, so I got to sometimes be with the Democrats. So, I don't know, this is a politically sticky issue. Let me not say anything as we bomb a fucking 8th country and lie about why we're even going in there in the first place. Wow, profiles in courage, Joe Manchin. Sitting idly by. And by the way, who in West Virginia is sitting there like, man, you know what? Bashar al-Assad is really keeping me back. We should really go bomb that bitch, don't you think? Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. In fact, half the time on the campaign trail, Trump railed against war. Maybe going against war is popular. And maybe people like it if you make the case against war. But the Democrats just sit there. Only 4 voiced principled objections. By the way, people who voiced the procedural objections, Elizabeth Warren is one of them, for example. So this is just, the Democrats wonder why they suck, why they keep losing, how in the face of comic book villains on the right, it's still competitive. Well, this is why. Because the Republicans oftentimes super serve their base. The Democrats ignore and snub their base and mock their base and shame their base. That was Hillary Clinton's strategy. I'm going to shame you. You're considering voting for Jill Stein? Oh, how dare you? I'm going to shame you. That's so sad. Oh, you care about the issues that she speaks to? Well, why? How about you don't vote for the person you agree with the most and you vote for me even though you disagree with me a lot more? Yeah, great strategy to get people on your side. Shame them. Blame, after you lose, blame James Comey and Vladimir Putin and Gary Johnson and Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders and the Russians and everybody but yourself for your own fucking loss. It's just so sad, the current state of affairs. Listen, they weren't even this bad. Under George W. Bush, the Democrats had more teeth in their opposition. Like, for example, it took maybe 4 or 5 years, which is way too long, but at a certain point, it was mainstream Democratic opinion that it's like, we shouldn't be in the war in Iraq. Mainstream Democratic opinion. Now we've so lost our way, the Democrats have so lost their way, that the bulk of the opposition is talking about Stormy Daniels, talking about Russia, and talking about Trump's high turnover in his administration. That's what they spend their time talking about. And then on issues of substance like Syria, only 4 Democratic senators voice principled opposition. Look in the fucking mirror. The reason you're losing is because of yourselves. This isn't that difficult. You should be able to stand up and in a robust way argue against any more offensive wars against countries that didn't attack us. That used to be a common sense position. That needs to be your position, but instead of making those arguments, you're sitting around with your thumbs up your asses, half agreeing with Trump.